What's up, everyone? My name is Eric Ayala, and this is Tattoo. This is Tattoo. As you know, obviously, millions of listeners. Everyone knows that This Is Tattoo podcast. We just rose above the Joe Rogan podcast on iTunes. It's incredible. I can't believe the incredible success. People that hate tattoos are now listening to This Is Tattoo. Just recently, I don't know if you pay attention to the news, but the Vatican has released a statement claiming that This Is Tattoo is by far the best podcast out there right now. Oh my gosh, how wonderful. Oh man. Being that kind of endorsement by the Catholic Church, I mean, you can't beat that, right? Man, what an amazing. I can't it's so successful so quickly, and it's such a niche topic. Tattooing and tattooers and their history and their lineage in tattooing. How could this be, you may ask? My gosh, I don't know. Don't fact check it though. That's all I've got to say. So who do we have on today? Today we have on Jeff P., tattooer and co-owner of Portland Tattoo Shop. You already know what it is. Tattoo Smile. Incredible name for an incredible tattoo shop. This podcast was really fun to listen to do. Jeff and I, we know each other somewhat. So he actually is the person I've interviewed, and I know him probably the least out of everybody I've interviewed. But it was really cool. He was very welcoming, and he's just a warm individual, And I think he does really, really sick, strong tats. And I think you should get tattooed by him, honestly. I mean, I think you should get tattooed by everybody that I have on my podcast, or why would I have him on this? You know what I mean? This is tattoo. This is what tattooing is. This is tattoo. All these people I put on the podcast, these people are tattoo. You know what I mean? Not that fake in the funk stuff that you might see with 1 million followers and all that stuff. You know what I mean? These are the real deal, holy feel tattooers. Tatters. These are the people. So go, if you're in Portland, go get tattooed by Jeff. Go get tattooed at Tattoo Smile. It's a beautiful shop in a beautiful area of Portland. I don't know if I have much more to say other than thanks for listening. And, hit that subscribe button or hit some button that lets me know that you think this is cool. Without further ado, here is Jeff P. on This Is Tattoo, episode 5. Hope you enjoy. Take a sip of my coffee here. Mm-hmm. Super early in the morning. Thank you for sitting here.
It's my pleasure.
Like 5 o'clock in the morning ish.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And so like I said, man, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your history in tattooing.
Sure.
Keep it pretty light, and you know what I mean. So I guess the first thing I want to ask you is who'd you vote for?
Not Trump.
No, God. Cut it. We're out. Let's get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Philly.
Okay.
East Coaster, Flyers fan. No real connection to tattooing at all for a while. I ended up going to New York when did I graduate high school? 99. I went to NYU for film production.
Oh.
And then I graduated. I did it, but kind of before my last year there, I'd kind of considered pursuing tattooing, but I had never been tattooed before. I'd never been in a tattoo shop. I didn't know anything about tattooing. I basically just had a friend who asked me to design a tattoo, and so I did that because I've always drawn stuff. And then I was kind of realizing I didn't want to pursue film as a career. It just wasn't the lifestyle for me. Mm-hmm. yeah, that seemed interesting. I got Steve Gilbert's book, Tattoo, out of the library and started reading up there, and seemed everything I was learning about it seemed like this is for me. Like I can travel, I can kind of be my own boss, I can just kind of draw for a living without being like a, being like a magazine illustrator or something like that, which didn't seem very interesting to me. Drawing skulls and naked ladies and, stuff I was drawing from when I was a kid anyway, made a lot of sense. But I didn't know anyone who was getting tattooed. I didn't know anything about tattooing. I didn't know where to go to get a tattoo. But I just started telling people I wanted to learn how to tattoo. And it just happened that my buddy Scott knew this woman, Lindsay, who knew 2 tattooers that had played in bands with her around New York. And she sent on email and it's like, hey, this kid wants to learn how to tattoo. Are either you guys interested? And it was actually Steve Boltz was one of them.
Oh, wow.
And the other one was this guy, Joe Truck. And Joe just seemed, I thought Steve's tattoos looked a little more refined. And I was leaning towards going with Steve, but he just didn't seem that into it, which I understand. And Joe seemed a little more enthusiastic, so I went the enthusiasm route.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I think Joe was probably charging me half of what Steve was charging, and I had zero money anyway, so that seemed more affordable, even though I had no money.
Yeah.
So I started kind of pursuing that, and just kind of like, basically, I kind of left Joe hanging for a while. I was like, I got to save some money, and then I'll get back to you. And then after a while, he hit me up, and he was just like, hey, are we doing this or what?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I just don't have any money. So he was kind of like, all right, well, come on out. I'll show you some stuff. You can pay me a little bit of money. I'll show you. And it was just kind of like I was paying him little by little. I was running errands for him, doing whatever it was to just kind of get a little information here and there. And it was a good enough apprenticeship. I don't know if you know Joe Truck, or I'm sure.
I'm not really that familiar with Joe
He's
Truck.
We always got along really well, but he was definitely someone when my apprenticeship was over, basically, and I was kind of like looking for a job around New York. This was in New York, by the way. I was like, so when I'm going to shops, should I tell them that I apprenticed with you, or should I not? He was like, well, tell me where you're going, and I'll tell you if you should mention my name or not. He'd burned some bridges, and so certain people were not super stoked on him. But he was always good to me. It's worked out great for me. I mean, I knew I just needed to get my foot in the door, just that bare minimum. I could make the best of it, make it work for me. So that would have been 2003, 2004 when I started with Joe, and he was trying to open a shop up in Yonkers, New York. So it's not upstate, but it's north of the city, basically, and not convenient. And I was working as a paid intern in a graphic design department in this PR firm, which was just a job. And then any days I had off, I was going up to Yonkers, helping out in the shop, helping build it. That shop was never opened legally, which is
that's good. Yeah,
it's interesting. It would have been a gold mine if we ever could, because there were not many shops up there, and even being not officially opened, we were very busy.
Wow.
And basically, the way it was set up then with me and Joe was I was basically drawing all the tattoos, and then he was tattooing them for the most part. That's my memory of it anyway. The first tip I got was drawing a tattoo for a woman who, she was an EMT, and she came in and she wanted a tattoo, and it was going right above her crotch, and it was BDB only in script, and like it had like there was like a halo over part of the lettering, and then like the Y, I think, like went into like a devil's tail. Maybe it even had wings on it. I'm not sure. And And that was for that stood for Bulldog Bitches Only.
Oh, okay.
So that was my first tip that I ever got tattooing, was drawing that, and Joe tattooed it. But that place was wild, man. It was just this strip of Nepperhan Ave that was just desert, just like industrial. There was nothing out there but us and like a bunch of like garage doors that who knows what they were doing in there. I don't know for sure. But
that was chop shops and stuff like
yeah,
that.
Exactly.
Like that kind of area.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was fucking, people were coming to get tattooed. It was crazy.
So like so you're an apprentice at this point with Joe. And so he would have you draw, as an apprentice, he'd have you draw tattoos like to get like your chops up of drawing, or
I mean that, and also I think just so that he could keep making money, he could keep tattooing and not waste time.
It's quicker.
Yeah. Just like you draw the stuff because I could draw. I mean, that was the strength I had coming into tattooing was I could draw, and so
you guys were busy enough that he's like, I need somebody drawing these things because I'm just busy tattooing the whole time.
It was busy enough, and
That's
I mean, like, it was just kind of like, it was just the kind of shop where it was just like, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I mean, we built the shop at it was pretty bare bones. It was color photocopies of Flash, like, excuse me, either I don't remember if we glued them to the wall or stapled them to the wall. But that was the setup, and there were 2 stations in there, and eventually I started tattooing there. The first tattoo I ever did on someone who didn't know I was an apprentice or didn't know I was starting out. This family had came. It was a black family, and a couple people in the family were getting tattooed. The husband was getting tattooed by Joe, and the wife wanted a little rosebud kind of on her breast here, and she was bigger, so it was a bigger breast, and kind of hard, it's darker skin. It's hard to see to see the stencil on there, and I'm trying to stretch it, and I'm like, oh man, like pushing way down, just like tattooing in this hole. I can barely see what I'm doing. I'm just like trying not to sweat too much and do it as best I could.
Did you have her laying down, or you had her sitting up, or
she was sitting up. Okay. I'm sure we were both just in. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we were both just in folding chairs, and so I'm just like trying to do the best I can, doing fine, I think, And her daughter, who was probably in her 20s, was just like over my shoulder, just like watching me tattoo.
That's so scary.
And I'm tattooing. She goes, nope. She's like, he doesn't know what he's doing.
For real. Just called you out immediately.
Yeah, she's like, he's not doing it right. We want the other guy to do it. And I was just like, fuck, I'm busted.
How far were you in the tattoo?
Probably in the outline still. I was outlining it. And I'm just like, fuck, I'm busted. I'm done. I put my shit down. And I walk over to Joe. I was like, hey, they want you to finish the tattoo. He's like, what? It's like, she said, I don't know what I'm doing. They want you to finish it. He was like, let me see it. She comes over. It's like, looks fine. You're finishing the tattoo. So I was like, oh, okay. So go back over, and I finished the tattoo, and it's fine. Everyone in the family is happy, and it worked out.
It's so funny because that's like the ultimate worst thing that could have happened.
Well, it's just like, the first tattoo out of the gate, it's just like, that's as bad as it's going to get. So they left, and Joe was like, he's like, I can't believe you didn't throw them out of the store. I was like, I didn't know that was an option. But it worked out. Like I said, everyone was stoked on their tattoos, but she was right. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah. How long were you an apprentice there then?
I'm not sure exactly. It basically went, so we were tattooing in there illegally, and the reason there weren't a lot of shops around there, I think it's because the town didn't want tattoo shops there.
Yeah.
So it was already going to be an uphill battle, and then they found out we were tattooing in there, and so they were just like, well, you guys are done.
Oh,
and so I think Joe kind of tried to fight it a little bit, but just kind of like was not going to happen, and so he went back to California. That was kind of the end of the apprenticeship. I'd done a couple tattoos. I had a lining machine that I had gotten from Sesta Ferry, and then it was just kind of like back to a regular job, and occasionally tattooing out of my apartment, and like scratching together like enough money to get some pigments, get another machine, get.
What year was this that he moved back to California?
This is probably, I mean, this was in 2004 at some point.
Okay, so it was just like
yeah, I mean, it was probably about a year more, give or take. Yes, and it was just like back in the apartment, just scratching and trying to get enough tattoos together to go get a job at a shop in the West Village somewhere, and then like kind of. Well, that's basically what happened. I kind of got enough equipment together to do some tattoos on friends and other people, and got enough money together eventually, and that's when I asked Joe about if I should be mentioning his name or not.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, if you go here, you can mention my name. If you go here, if you talk to these people, don't tell them you know me. Joe, I think my understanding at least was he had apprenticed with Sean Vasquez, who had also taught, I can't think of her last name, but Michelle from Daredevil Tattoo in New York. Mm-hmm. And I think there was some bad blood related to that. But I don't know. That's just a little bit of that's just a little background there to kind of trace the lineage, at least as far as I understand it. So what was what were we talking about?
And then you went from like collecting equipment, doing like some tattoos on friends. So
then I
stuff.
headed to the West Village in New York, which I don't know like if you're familiar.
Not really.
But it's it's just like head shops, porn shops. And
sick.
It's a shitty part of town.
Yeah.
And there's so basically I ended up working at these two shops that were related. One was called Joker's Tattoo and one was called New York Ink. And they were head shops that had tattooing in the basement. So I was sitting in the basement of a head shop waiting for people to come, NYU students or whoever, tourists to come in and ask for shitty tattoos. And I did that it was about 6 months. And I remember, but that point, I mean, I'd met some people. So I was like starting to so Joe, I mean, probably one of the best things, a couple of the best things he did was he had been really good friends with Steve Boltz at some point, but though they had a falling out. Mm-hmm. But he was like, Steve is the best tattooer. Get tattooed by Steve. He's the best. Get tattooed by Steve. He's the best. So I went and I got this eagle tattoo. Steve was working at a XXX tattoo in Midtown. I went up and did that. And for whatever reason, I mean, you hear so many stories about how mean people are, you know, like in tattooing. They don't want new tattooers around. They don't want to teach anyone or show anyone. For whatever reason, everyone I've ever met in tattooing has been super friendly, welcoming, and just the best. And I don't know if I just have the best. I mean, obviously, like
you have a really nice face. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Just chalk it up to you're
like,
really
once you're
welcoming.
In tattooing, like most of the people you meet in tattooing are amazing, but there's
that wall.
Yeah, there's a wall there for sure. But Joe was like, get tattooed by Steve. He's the best. Get tattooed by Steve. So I went and got tattooed by Steve, and he was super cool. And like, I mean, he didn't like hand me everything, but he just kind of gave me a few tips and was encouraging. It was just like, when you're drawing, try doing this. And, you know, like, so Steve was great. And then right around when I was with Joe still was when, so Joe was like, hey, this dude Bert in Florida is doing these fucking super cool, traditional, like bold, flat tattoos. Like, he's amazing. And then he was like, dude, Bert is in New York now. He's like, let's go. So me and Joe went up to Bert's shop, Top Shelf in Queens. And again, I didn't have any money. I couldn't get tattooed, but I went and Joe got tattooed and bought a painting. And again, Bert was just like, anytime you want to come up, come hang out at the shop, you know, like you're welcome. And so I took him up on it. Went up and hung out, and I eventually got my whole front tattooed from Bert, which is
that's cool.
That tattoo like opened up doors for me. Just like I could walk into it like pretty much any shop and flash the tattoo, and people were like, "Oh, you're the one with the bear." Yeah, that's you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
you're the one with the bear.
Oh
my gosh, dude! You know how much I looked at that tattoo?
Oh, I know.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to get like
we'll
nice video.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, and that like so Bert and I kind of became friends like that. He was super cool to me. Dan Santoro happened to be hanging out with Bert at that shop around that time, so I met Dan Santoro there. I went with a friend of mine to Daredevil. He was getting tattooed, and I was just flipping through books and saw Eli Quinter's book there, and like so. Those were the guys that like
very early in your career.
Those were the first guys I met in tattooing. They were all super cool to me. Again, I don't know why. And years later, they were Smith Street Tattoo, obviously, and they're amazing, and they've always been incredible to me. When I moved out to Portland, they were like, Jason Condell's moving out to Portland. We'll talk to Jason. They kind of got me that job where I worked for the last 10 years before we opened up Smile. Those guys did everything for me. Nothing. There was no benefit to them to to help me out other than
what did they like? So, what did they know about you? You know what I mean? Did they like when Joe went and got tattooed by Bert?
They didn't, about me, nothing. And Joe, I think he was just a tattooer in New York and California. Like he had been tattooing in California as well, but like.
You were just asking the right questions. You were just.
I think I wasn't. Maybe because I wasn't asking questions. I was just there with my mouth shut, just kind of taking it all in. Totally. I was respectful and just fucking terrified. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. It kind of felt like if I said the wrong thing, it's just like, okay, you're out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, well, I'm just gonna stay quiet and listen to everything they're saying and pay attention to everything and tuck it away. And definitely like. There are things I still think about, if not daily, like weekly, that were from like those first times going up to Top Shelf and hanging out with Bert and Dan. Things that Steve told me the first time I went and got tattooed from him. Just little things, little tricks about, how to go about drawing, how to kind of like, we were all kind of chasing that traditional look, a specific look to, I think specifically East Coast traditional. And, just little tricks about how to get that look, because when you know how to draw a skull anatomically correct, it's hard to
dumb it back down.
It's hard to draw like why would you draw a skull like that? It's fucking insane. It looks so much better. Yeah. But it's hard to, I don't know, and it feels stupid when you're doing it, and so you rely heavily on those older designs, but there are tricks that I've kind of learned from those guys that can kind of fool your brain into doing what you want it to do.
Yeah. I think it's almost kind of harder for people that are like, I wouldn't even say, I don't know, classically trained. Just like very good at drawing.
You know how to draw. You can look at something and draw it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think Bert didn't really. I think that I read that in an interview or something that he didn't really draw before he started tattooing.
Yeah, I don't know
if there's any.
I don't know, but he's.
He's
kind of a genius of. All those guys.
Design genius, Yeah.
Yeah, he knows. I don't know. His stuff looks like his, but it has the right feel. It's so tough. It's so cool looking. And all those guys, it's been interesting. It's interesting to watch. They didn't just find something and just do that. It's like their styles are all changing and they inform each other. And you can see Eli picking up things that Bert does. You can see Bert picking up things that Steve does. It all. Yeah,
they're constantly trying things.
Absolutely. I think maybe to someone outside of that world of tattooing, it might all look the same. But people that are into it, it's just like, you can see, it's awesome seeing it. I don't know, just like, I'm not going to say anything new about it that hasn't been said by other people, but I don't know. Those are the guys. Basically for like my whole career, I've just been trying to tattoo like those guys tattoo, for better or worse. I think I'm finally at a point now where I think I'm feeling more comfortable kind of going outside of that realm a little bit, kind of trying to find myself within that world a little bit more, which is really exciting because it's been terrifying for me to try that for so long. Even if I thought I had an idea, I just wouldn't do it because I hadn't seen someone else do it before. Yeah, and it was just like, well, maybe you're not supposed to do that. Maybe that's why no one's done it. And then, like once or twice, I had an idea that I didn't do, and then I would see someone do it that I trust, and just like, okay. You can do other stuff. You can do things that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Which I mean, like from an artistic standpoint, obviously,
Yeah.
but within tattooing, it's tricky because I mean, I think about a lot about what I like in other people's tattoos, and it's the things usually that when people are like kind of pushing the boundaries are the things I like least about the tattoo. So
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's something I struggle with constantly with tattooing, where especially these days there's so many amazing tattooers.
Yeah.
And we're all looking at the same books. We're all looking at the same flash. We're all redrawing it the same way. We're all looking at Smith Street and what they're doing. And it all starts to look the same. And you start to wonder, what am I contributing to this?
Oh, man.
But then it's like, as soon as I see people kind of going outside, I'm just like, but I don't like that. And so it's a struggle. And I think I'm just recently have been kind of finding my way out of it. We've got Scott Harrison is joining the shop very soon, and he's been coming and doing paint nights with us. And he's been really encouraging as far as like, first it was just like, just instead of tracing that piece of flash, just
Look at it and
just draw it. And then like, why don't you draw your own thing? And like, oh, that thing that you drew is cooler than that other thing. And it's working with him has just kind of like really helped me kind of start finding myself in tattooing, giving me kind of the confidence to do it, and find it in a way that I like the tattoos. As if, it's like I've done tattoos outside of the style of tattooing that I love, or like versions of them. It's just like I can tell that that's a good tattoo, but it doesn't feel like a Jeff P tattoo. It feels, it's like it feels like someone else's tattoo. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just I don't connect with it, and I want to connect with the work I'm doing, obviously.
So, all right, sorry. There was so much that was great.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Oh man. No, that was awesome.
Like I just keep
jumping
around.
And it was amazing. I was just like, man, I just want to listen. So you were, let's just kind of dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
You were hanging out with like the Smith Street dudes before they were Smith Street.
Yeah.
And at that point, where were you working? And how often would you like hang out with those guys or like pick their brains, or was it just when you were getting tattooed? Or?
No, I was spending a lot of time. Once they opened Smith Street, I think it was open 2 years before I left New York.
Okay.
Or maybe only a year. But basically, let me try and think. So I was working in the West Village, this just awful head shop. I mean, it was maybe as far as basement head shop, tattoo shops, I think it was okay. But I was miserable there. So I knew Eli at this point, and he had been really cool to me, and I was just kind of like, dude, like, what do I do? How do I get out of here? Like, this is miserable. And he gave me he was basically like, do every tattoo that comes in the shop, only put stuff in your portfolio that you want to do again. And it's just like, just keep doing it. And like, as soon as you can get out of there, get out of there. Basically, again, I don't know why, but he was super friendly. And I've kind of jumped back a little bit here. This is when I was in my apartment. I was just like trying to figure out how to paint flash. And I just would go home at night after work, and I would just, not even painting a design, I was just trying to fade, just figure out how to get a fade. And I just couldn't do it. I was like, well, I want a smooth fade. So I got this smooth paper. And finally I was just like, fuck it. And this was probably, I guess, MySpace days. And I hit up Eli. I was like, hey dude, I need some help. Like,
had you seen anybody do it before?
No, I'd never seen
you
anyone.
Just like, you didn't know.
I'd just seen what it looks like. And I was just like, how do I do that? And just like, wetting the paper, wetting the paint, just like, and it was just
spreading all over the place.
Yeah, it was just like, it was nothing. It was like, and it was so much work just for like a little half inch. And it was just like, this can't be the way you do it.
There has to be a better.
Yeah.
You're like that black and gray, like the infomercial. There has to be a better way.
And hit up Eli, and he was just like, try this paper, try this. And it was that kind of like changed everything. So I painted him a painting and took it to him, and that was good. It's funny when I think about it now, think about how young he was then,
Mm-hmm.
and, young in tattooing as well. And it's just like, oh, interesting. I don't know. It's just like, it's when you think about, like, when you get older and having kids, start thinking about your parents, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, my parents were this age at that time. They seemed so old.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
I don't feel that old.
Like everybody we tattoo, like all the 18-year-olds and stuff, they look at us and they're like,
well, that was the thing for the longest time before I had a kid. You're like, oh, do you have any kids? And in my head, I was just like, do I look like someone who could have a kid? It's just like, yeah, dude, you're in your 30s.
Give me a kid.
You could definitely have kids by now. So eventually, yes, working in the West Village, I had to do it, but it fucking sucked. It was just miserable. I wasn't any good, so it was where I was supposed to be. And then a friend of mine who lived in Brooklyn, there was a tattoo shop around the corner from him that I would just walk past every time I was going to his place. And one time I got up enough nerve to walk in there and look at the portfolios, and I was like, okay. I was like, I think if I worked here, I wouldn't be the worst person. So maybe I can get a job here. So I asked for a job, got a job. It was called Hannah Glory Tattoo. Craig Rodriguez owned it. He still owns it. I think it's still there. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but again, he was someone that a lot of people had a hard time with him.
Mm-hmm.
We got along great. After I left that shop, a friend of mine was still working there, and there was some shop meeting, and he said something about, like, none of you are ever going to be as good of an employee as Jeff B was, so don't even think.
That's amazing.
But it was kind of ridiculous. Like, it's like, why would you? I don't know. Anyway, he was always really good to me.
How long were you there?
I was there. I was there until I left Brooklyn.
Okay.
So that was in 2009. So a handful of years, like 4 years. I think 5 would probably be pushing it. Mm-hmm. So 3 or 4 years. And I had told him, so my wife and I knew we were leaving. She was going to school and she was going to finish in 2 years. And we knew when she was done school, we were moving to Portland. And so I gave him 2 years notice. I was just like, hey.
As you do.
He was, at that time, he was kind of like reinvesting in the shop and in the people that were working there. And I just wanted to be very clear. It's just like, hey, 2 years, I'm moving to Portland. But for the next 2 years, I'm going to be here. So, make your decisions with that information.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I didn't see any reason not to. I feel like if I had that information, he might as well have that information. It didn't
for sure.
Didn't seem crazy to me.
Who else worked there?
Chris Torres, who was on TV reality tattoo show.
Oh, yeah.
New York Inc.
Yep.
And he was a character, and he was Brooklyn through and through, born and raised. Amazing stories. I had a good time working with him. He's a character. And I checked. He opened up a shop after the show. He'd opened up a shop, his own shop, and I went by and said hi. And he was super cool. He said if I ever needed a place to work, I could work there, and that was super cool of him. And
that's cool.
So Chris Torres was there. My friend Josh Agnew was working there. He's got Electric Anvil Tattoo.
Yeah.
In New York.
Okay.
He's doing well. Paul Bosch, who's got 2 sons, tattoo in is it Cleveland? Something like Cleveland, if it's not Cleveland. He's got a shop out there now. It was fun working with him. Derek Snell works up in Connecticut now. Karen Glass has a private studio in Brooklyn now. I'm forgetting some people, I'm sure, and I apologize, but
that's cool though. Okay, so you worked with there was a good amount of fairly well-known tattooers.
It was a shop that was a solid. It was a cool shop. There was Old Flash all over the walls. Copies of Old Flash. Craig, the owner, was also an art collector, so there was like a big Manuel Ocampo painting in the back. Fred Stonehouse paintings. Tony Fitzpatrick, Clayton Brothers. His wife, Anna C., was a talented painter, a successful painter as well. So that was like my first exposure to a lot of these really cool outsider art painters as well, and just the idea of collecting art, you know, like that could be a thing.
They were originals he had?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, they were amazing. He had an amazing art collection. He was, I don't know how but he was friends, like personal friends with Joe Coleman. Like his son called Joe Coleman Uncle Joe. And like I met Joe Coleman going to a show with Craig. It was really cool.
Wow.
He was in that world, and I learned a lot working with him about art and tattooing for sure. But it's not a shop that a lot of people. It was just a tattoo shop in Brooklyn, you know.
Yeah. But people went on to open shops.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
I mean, it was real tattooers for sure.
Yeah.
In there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was there until I left Brooklyn. I went back and did a couple guest spots there. And at some point along the way, there was kind of like some shit that happened at the shop with friends that worked there. I don't want to get into the details of it, but it just felt like, I don't know. And I was talking to Eli about it, and I was talking to Steve about it. And Steve was just like, well, if you're asking if you can come work here, you know you can come work here. And I was like, I didn't know that. And that's amazing. I'm going to do that. And so I sent Craig an email. I was just like, hey, this is an amazing opportunity for me. I think you understand that. And thank you for everything. And I'm going to do guest spots with these guys from now on. And he was super cool. And what more can you ask for? You know,
it's always so great when somebody just like, they're like, yeah, I want to see you do what makes you happy. You know? Yeah, that's awesome. Was working there, was it a pretty interesting place to work?
Hand of Glory?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's all these points in your career where you think you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of years later, you're just like, oh, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Yeah. That was terrible. I can't believe it. I can't believe that's what I was doing. And I thought that was good. Mm-hmm. And so I try and always be wary of that. Hopefully at this point, I'm doing something I won't hate in a few years. But we will see. But yeah, I mean, it was I mean, all the places I've been, you know, in Ace of Hearts Tattoo was the name of the shop in Yonkers. That was never open legally. And then working in my apartment, and then working in the West Village, and then working in Hand of Glory. Those were all the right spots for me at those times. By the time I deserved to be working somewhere else, I was working somewhere else. You know, it was just like I can talk shit about some of those places now. I can talk shit about the West Village, but at that time, it was just like I didn't deserve to be
anywhere else.
I was garbage. I fucking sucked. Like,
yeah.
It was really hard. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was a struggle. And it was just like just looking for little things to figure out here and there, and kind of like slowly piece it together. My apprenticeship was really. Like, I didn't make needles, I didn't make pigment. It was just like, here's how you do it, now you do it. You know, and it was just like, okay, my foot's in the door. I'll collect the information, you know, along the way. I'll get what I need to know. But it always kind of felt like, I know other people have this feeling too, but I feel like it was even more so in my case, like, you know, the imposter syndrome, where you just feel like you're not the real thing and someone's going to figure it out eventually, and you're going to be busted, you know. And that for me, because it was like I had no connection to tattooing. I had no tattoos. This is before I met Joe. The only shop I knew about was Daredevil Tattoo on the Lower East Side, because a friend of mine got tattooed there. And so I walked into Daredevil Tattoo. Someone comes up to the counter and was like, hey, how do you become a tattoo artist? And it was I didn't know any tattooers at the time, but now I know it was Seth Wood, who was a fucking incredible tattooer. And he was much nicer, and then he was completely nice, and was like, well, there's a right way and a wrong way. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, what's the right way? He's like, well, you find someone apprentice you. And like, so you get tattooed and they teach you how to tattoo. I was like, okay. He was like, do you have any tattoos? I was like, no. He was like, all right, well, I've never heard of anyone getting an apprenticeship without having any tattoos. I was like, okay. What's the wrong way? He was like, just buy a kid out of a magazine and start fucking up your friends. I was like, all right, thank you very much. So it wasn't until I moved to Portland and Seth came by Artwork Rebels to see Jason, and I recognized his tattoos on his forearms, and I was just like, oh my God.
Dude, you were nice to me.
That was the guy. I was just like, holy shit. Yeah, so, I did realize it before that, but that was when I told him. Because I knew who Seth was before I moved to Portland, so got a little bit out of sorts there.
But that was the first time you could tell him, hey, dude,
Yeah.
you probably don't remember me at all.
Yeah.
But you had a pretty big
he was
impact.
like, oh, was I a dick? I was like, no, you were really kind of like, you should have been. Like, you were too nice.
It's nice, though, that, like, you have those. I think when I was, like, maybe a couple years into tattooing, I thought, because everybody was a dick to me when I was, like, really young. I remember a lot of. I will always remember the tattooers that were nice to me when I was an apprentice, like Henry Rodriguez from Oddball. Do you know Henry?
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
He was one of the nicest dudes to me.
He is one of the nicest guys.
He was great, and I will always remember that. I will always buy machines from that dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because I have a similar, not with Henry, but at Oddball. Cheyenne was working at Oddball when I first started coming out to Portland, and he was like the first Portland tattooer that I spoke to, and like he like gave me the time of day, and it was just like super sweet. And like, so Cheyenne and I have been friends since then. Like, you know, when someone takes the time for a minute just to kind of like be a nice person,
Yeah.
you remember that shit.
Yeah. It's crazy how you do.
I try and be that kind of person, not just like, you know, I mean, there's tons of people want to be tattooers these days, and there's different ways to do it, and people ask a lot of questions, and I try and not tell them everything, but you know, try and get them on at least a better path. It's tough in Portland with the tattoo schools here.
Oh yeah, we
Where
I'm at, we had a couple, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the best advice is like, if you want to be a tattooer in Portland, move somewhere else, get licensed somewhere else and work there for a while, and then move to Portland and get licensed that way, because the tattoo school system is just like, it's expensive from what I'm like. It's expensive, and you're not learning. You're just learning the bloodborne pathogen shit, and you're taking the test, which is a pain in the ass. I don't know.
You're learning how to pass the test.
Yeah, I was lucky. I mean, I was licensed in New York, and I was paying taxes as a tattooer. So when I moved here, I just had to show them what New York's requirements were, and they were like, "Okay, cool, that works for us."
Why were you paying taxes?
Just the right amount.
Okay.
Credit, man. You got to build up credit.
No. I mean, I do everything right. Well, once I got married, my wife is very by the book. So now I report literally everything I make. I'm one of the very few tattooers
it's not a
that
bad
does
thing.
that. I know and it saved me during quarantine. I got I got the full payout, and I was like, sick. I'm glad I didn't lie about.
There are benefits. You can buy a house. You can
I can buy a house if I want to. Yeah.
Now you can get unemployment. Yeah.
But yeah, man, what were we talking about?
I don't remember.
Okay, so
Seth Wood and becoming a tattoo. I went way back. Jumped way back in time.
But so the guys from Smith Street, they vouched for you, so you got in with Jason.
Yeah, and it was basically just like I took a trip. I had a trip planned to come out to Portland to see some friends. And so I just added on a little stopover in San Francisco and went to the shop, went to Seventh Son down there and met him and hung out for a night, and we got along really great. And he gave me a job. So it was nice. Like by the time I was coming out to Portland, I knew I had a job in place at a good shop. You know, I mean, I had been looking at all the shops, and I was just like, oh, these are shops I would want to work at. But like, I was talking to them, and like, Portland was kind of like closed in a weird way, like because it was so regulated.
Yeah.
You needed a license. You needed like a full. They didn't do temporary licenses. They didn't do guest licenses back then.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to come out and guest, you needed a Oregon tattoo license.
Yeah, they didn't do those temporaries for
For a while.
A while.
Yeah.
What, it was like just like maybe 5-6 years ago or something, right? Or
Yeah, probably 6.
6 years
I think.
ago?
Yeah, it took a while. And
so you had a job lined up.
had the job lined up, which was great. Oh yeah, so like it was. You can only guess somewhere if they really knew you and were willing to risk having someone working there unlicensed, and so like no one was willing to do that. I didn't know anyone, but I was kind of trying to figure out what shops. Like, okay, these are shops I would like to work at. These are shops I know I can get a job at if I don't want to work at these places, but it's better than
you
nothing.
got to get something. Yeah,
exactly. Until I meet some people, and then this thing just fell in my lap. It's like, oh, Jason Condell's moving out there. You can work with Jason Condell. I was just like, well, that's obviously where I want to work.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. I mean, work when you can say Jason Condell and Artwork Rebels, doors just fly open
for
for
sure.
you. And so then it was just a matter of like, don't embarrass yourself, work hard, do the best work you can do. And that was what it was for, the last 10 years, was just like trying to not embarrass myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I couldn't disappoint Jason. I couldn't disappoint the guys at Smith Street that had vouched for me. There was a lot of weight on doing it the right way. And I think that's good. Like, I mean, it kept me in line for at least, 10 years. And then I was just like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm doing my own thing. But no, I mean, like Jason he works harder at tattooing than anyone I've ever met. And for someone that's been doing it as long as he has, to constantly put in the amount of work that he does is overwhelming. It's overwhelming to watch, and it's just like you can't match it. You can't really even try to match it. All you can do is try and learn whatever you can from someone like that. We tattooed in such different styles, and we're going for such different things that we kind of butted heads, because I'm drawing, this East Coast traditional, and then he's drawing this super dynamic, detailed, Japanese-inspired work. So there wasn't always a lot that translated other than, well, one, the work ethic of just putting in the work and making something look good. And, you have to be your hardest critic, because other people are not. People are like, yeah, it looks fine, it looks cool.
Yeah.
You have to be able to, especially your clients. Your client, like, when I first started tattooing, I was so afraid of pleasing clients. But once I started tattooing, I realized it's like, oh, that's the easy, like, pleasing your client is like, they're easy, like, they love whatever you do for the most part, unless they're just people that are not going to be happy no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. So it's really like, I mean, for me, it's thinking about Jason, thinking about Steve and Bert and Eli and Dan. How do I impress those guys? Those are the guys that I want to. If one of those guys likes my tattoos, then that's a good tattoo.
Yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean? But it's like, if you're just looking at it like your client likes it, it's just like, you're not going to get much better. You'll probably get worse. Anyway, with Jason, for me, it was like, what can I learn? The thing that he's so good at, the way he places a tattoo on the body, he draws this incredible drawing, and the head lands here, the tail lands here, there's a cool claw here, like getting all that stuff to land on those key parts of the arm or leg or wherever it is. That was something I really tried to get from him. It's so hard. You take a trace in the arm, you lay it out on a table, and it's like this big, I don't know what, it's kind of like shaped like an urn or something, you got like the cutout for the, and it's like, okay, that doesn't really look like an arm. But you have to, like, it's like there's this key muscle here, there's, here, there's the inside, this hidden spot here, there's the flat part of the forearm, and you have to know where all those places are on that flat map of the arm and get the things to lay in the right spot and look cool. You don't just draw a cool dragon that fits in this in this shape and just things fall, you end up with the dragon's face like in the ditch, so it's always fucked up looking, the claws like halfway around, the arm like this. And
I forget the name of that book, but there was like I think it was Aaron Kane had a book where it was like talking about like the focal points of the art. Did you ever see that?
I never saw that one, but it makes sense. I mean, he's someone who, I mean, that's like his whole thing.
Yeah. And he talks about like, you know, things in certain spots. Somebody had it that I worked with. It was an older tattooer. And I looked at it and it was so far above my, like I was like maybe a few years into tattooing.
It's one
I wish
thing
I could look at it now.
Yeah, it's one thing to know it intellectually. It's a whole other thing to actually
do it.
To draw something cool that all those things fall in the right spot and make sense somewhat anatomically or, you know, whatever it is you're drawing.
Speaking of Jason, though,
yeah,
and talking about people that are nice to you for no reason.
Yeah.
and one thing I wanted to say,
experience?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I just popped in there. I think I was, man, I don't know how old I was in tattooing. Pretty young, you know. But I just popped in there. He's like, "Oh, you're a tattooer. Cool. Do you want to see the back pieces?"
Yeah,
I've got taped on the wall, and this, you know, this was like the old, and I was like, yes, really bad, you know,
yeah.
And he's like showing me, and I was like, so these are the ones you've done? He's like, no, these are I just drew these.
Yeah, just like in progress stuff.
And oh no, it wasn't back piece, it was bodysuits.
Yeah.
It was all taped to the
wall.
Well,
I mean, like his back piece. I mean, like if he does a back piece, it goes from your shoulders to the back of your knees.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
it was
a stack of them up against the wall.
Against the wall. They were coming off, it was tracing papers coming off the wall. And they were super nice. And man, whenever I think of that dude, the one word that I think he fully embodies is prolific, you know, just the amount of work, and they're all insane and beautiful.
Well, and he does. I mean, if he's drawing a sleeve, it starts in his sketchbook, and he'll draw 5, 6, 7 small thumbnail sketches of that idea to kind of figure out, and then he'll go a little bit bigger from that, kind of work it out a little bit more, then he'll blow that up and then do some more. I mean, it's just like layers of tracing paper, different colored pencils and pens and whiteout, and it's just
it's insane.
It's insane. It's an insane amount of work. But I mean, he does it, and he fucking does it happily. I mean, like, he loves doing it. He loves coming up with new ways of doing claws, new ways of doing teeth. New ways of like twisting the dragon's body around, or it's crazy. it's crazy to watch. I mean, it's. I mean, like, part of what I look, I'm just like, well, I don't want to work that hard. I know. I don't want to do that.
So bad. It's so bad, but I know exactly what you mean.
But I mean, I can't say enough about what he did for me, because like again, when I was working with Jason, when I first started working with him, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing in tattooing.
Yeah.
And I look back at the time now, it's embarrassing. And but he brought me on and other tattooers that, you know, like me, didn't deserve it, you know, and he taught us a lot. I mean, like, directly, like, here's how you draw, here's how you draw a script, you know, this is, there were lessons, you know, and it was
really,
and it was just like, you guys need to work on this, and you guys need to do this. I want to see more of this while you're here. I can't say enough about Jason. Yeah,
that's amazing. So he would sit down with you, like, would he have like all right, we're gonna sit down, I'm gonna teach you.
There's a guy we're working on waves. For whatever reason, script was always a big one. Like, he was always, if you're working in my shop, you guys got to be good at doing script.
That makes sense.
It was something that was important to him, and it's an important thing in tattooing, especially if you're a walk-in shop, which it always was working with him. And he was just like, all right, well, here, we're going to go through the alphabet, and he would like draw out an alphabet for us, and, you know, we'd like talk about different ways of doing it, and he would want you to work on it. And if you know, someone came in, they wanted a name, you would draw it, and you had to,
show him.
You couldn't just tattoo it, you know, had to get approved before you could tattoo it. And it was great. Like,
yeah.
I mean, to have someone, I don't know, I remember seeing people looking through a portfolio of a tattooer, and I was like, how long have you been tattooing? It's like 15 years. And I'm looking at a portfolio, I'm just like, dude, it doesn't look like you've been tattooing more than a year. Like, how do you not improve at all. I mean,
well, those are the guys you walk in the shop and they're laying on the couch looking at their phone. You know, like
so I mean, like again, like I think the best advice you give to a young tattooer is be around, like always be around the best tattooers you can be around. You know, it might not be anyone that's very good. You might just be starting out and you're just in some shitty shop and the people that you work with aren't very good. But be at the best shitty shop,
right?
You know, and learn whatever you can, and then get into a better shop as soon as you can, and just you just constantly have to be around better people. It's the best, like it's the only thing that's going to make you better.
Yeah. So what I had heard, I don't know, I don't remember who told me, but it was basically like if you're the best one at your shop, you got to roll.
Yeah,
you gotta,
totally.
You got to find a new spot to be at.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I think about a lot. There's a lot of private studios now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't be interested in that, like, because I feel like part of what's so great about tattooing is going to work with your buddies every day and hang out and talk about whatever. So that's weird, but I also just feel like I don't know. Mike Roper was always such a mystery to me because he was working by him. It seemed like he was working by himself forever.
Yeah,
but he's insanely good. So I don't like. I guess there's exceptions to every rule, but yeah, I feel like the best way to get better is to be around people who are better than you, and if you can find people who are better than you that are willing to help you, even better.
Yeah. Speaking of Mike Roper,
my
friend Brian would do like interviews for some tattoo publication, and he was trying to talk to Mike, and he's like, Mike, I'd really like to interview you. You know, your stuff is amazing. He's like, oh man, I'd love to. It's just you know, once I feel like my work is good enough to be in a magazine, then I'd love to sit down and talk with you.
You can see what's look at the magazines.
No, right? But it's that kind of like you were saying, it's that kind of you have to be your toughest critic,
totally.
You know. So a little bit, I just kind of want to hear about what were those lessons like with Jason. You know, when he'd sit you down and he essentially give you kind of like homework then, and you'd have to be like things
absolutely.
you got to work on, right?
Yeah, homework or just whatever tattoo came in. He was just like, we don't do bad tattoos here. So
was it like specific to you that he'd be like, hey, you kind of need to work on this? And
no, it wasn't so much like, oh, you're not doing good, you need to step it up. It was more just like, you got to show that to me before you tattoo it, so I can correct, tell you what to change, and then you have to do those changes so that it looks better.
Yeah. That's amazing. I like that though.
Oh, I mean, I do too. It's hard. I think it's difficult to find someone who, one, is willing to take the time and is also willing to be that honest with you, and I feel like I've always been somebody who's, I want that criticism.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be hard to hear, especially if you like feel like you did something good and someone's like, well, this looks stupid. And what is this here? This is weird. Oh, I remember one of Jason's favorite critiques was just like, oh, is this your move? This like your thing that you do? Don't do that.
I feel like that's got to be an older guy's thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's your like style, right?
Yeah.
Like where you didn't like do it right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was constant. It was, it was just like any drawing. It's like, show me the drawings. I want to see the drawing before. It lightened up, after working there for a few years, and there was a certain amount of trust where he was just like, you know what you're doing enough to not make an embarrassment out of this, but
like you were saying, like he gave a lot of people a lot of shots. He must have seen something in you that was like, I want to learn, I want to get better, because
I think so. I mean, that's what I had heard when I got the job, and before I got the job, when Bert was like, Jason's going to be moving up there too, you should talk to Jason, and Bert put in a good word, and it was kind of like, my understanding was like, Jason's not looking for someone who is already set in their ways and doing their thing. He was like, he wants someone younger who's wants to learn, and I think I fulfilled that in some ways, but I think what Jason was really looking for was someone to kind of carry his torch, to kind of like, tattoo more, like really learn the stuff that he was doing, especially in Japanese style tattooing, and to kind of like do that. And then I wasn't the guy for that, sure. But I mean, I definitely learned a lot. I mean, an unbelievable amount. I mean, I've been tattooing 16 years now, and I spent 10 of those with Jason at Artwork Rebels. That's insane. So and it's just like the first 5 years of tattooing, you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So really my entire career as a tattoo, like really being a tattooer, was with him. So I mean, I was around other tattooers as well. Yeah. They taught me a lot too, but I mean, he taught me everything, opened up countless doors. And that's what made leaving Artwork Rebels so difficult, was because I knew at that point that it wasn't the right place for me anymore. And it wasn't because it was a bad shop or anything. It was where I wasn't tattooing and what I wanted to be around. But it was hard to leave because he gave me so much, and it's hard to say, like, thanks for all that. I'm out of here now. Hopefully being there for 10 years feels like he got something out of it. And, we're still friends. It wasn't like a bad breakup or anything. But it was difficult to leave. And I told him, as soon as Manny and Gordon and I had decided we were definitely going to do it, like open up a shop together, I was like, all right, I have to tell Jason, like, I'm going to tell him now. Like,
were you were the one that was like, we gotta.
Well, I mean, Manny was on the same page as far as telling Brian, and we just wanted to kind of coordinate. We didn't want anyone to hear
anything from somewhere else.
Yeah, from somewhere else. We just wanted to make
kept
sure
it under wraps and then completely.
Yeah, I mean, cool. As soon as we knew we were doing it, we were like, okay, he was like, I'm going to tell Brian, and I was like, I'm going to tell Jason. Gordon was working in Colorado and was going to be moving back, so it was kind of like a non-issue for him. But Jason was, I knew it was going to be tough for him. It was tough for me, but he was super cool. He knows how it goes. He was super supportive. He let me work there, continue working there for a while. Well, once we found a spot, then he was like, and he was kind of like, he had a lot of new people coming in, and was kind of like restarting over there. And so once we found a spot, he was like, I think it's time for you to be somewhere else.
Yeah. There's no way to sidestep that kind of awkward. There's like that little awkward.
Yeah, totally. And it was fine. I think we both knew that there were plenty of shops I was friends with. So I ended up working at Blacklist in the meantime while we built out the shop, and those guys were great. It was kind of, everything kind of worked out great in that I was kind of like in this weird place in tattooing where I didn't feel connected. I was kind of just like going to work, doing my tattoos, going home, going to work, doing my tattoos, and going home. And I kind of just started drifting further and further away, and just kind of feeling like, what am I doing in tattooing? I was trying to paint more then. I was considering maybe just like quitting tattooing and focusing on painting. And it was kind of just this series of events that just kind of like turned it all around for me, which a big part of it was where I met you, was going out to Oktoberfest at Old Soul in Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania, at Josh Mason's shop, where he had been offering to, inviting me out there for a couple of years, and I was intending to go, and I just never really pulled the trigger. And then around that time, he's like hit me up, and I committed early. I was like, yes, I'm definitely going to go. And it seemed like kind of like a convention-y kind of thing.
Yeah. That was your first one, right?
I've done 2 of them.
Oh, 2, okay.
So I met you last year.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I don't know, I hate conventions. Like, I'm just like not comfortable. I don't do good work at I went in. I only brought enough stuff to do 3 tattoos. I was like, I'm just doing 3 tattoos, and I'm done, because I don't want to start saying yes and just be tattooing the whole time, and it's like kind of get in that zone. I just want to do 3, so I feel like I'm kind of pulling my weight, not just taking up space. So I did that, but it kind of blew my mind, because it's an amazing group of people that's like they're all directly connected to someone who works at that shop, who's like, this is a cool person.
Everybody has to be vouched for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And maybe not just that, but that combined with that shop, there's just good vibes in there.
It's magic, dude.
It's hard to explain, but it was just like, it kind of blew my mind and it made me excited about tattoo. I think part of it was kind of knowing the Smith Street guys really early on. Those are the guys that I always aspired to be. I mean, I'm the same age as most of those guys. Steve's older, but they were always older in tattoo years. They like, by the time I was tattooing, they were like established and were doing great work and had clientele. And so they were like all mentors to me, even though we were the same age. And so I always held myself to that standard, which I think is good. Like you want to hold you should be aspiring to be, maybe not trying to be the best, but like you should be looking at the best and like again, being your harshest critic. And I went to this, and there were all these great tattooers there, and I felt like one of them. You know what I mean? Like and like people were like, "Oh, I love your tattoo." There was like a lot of people telling me they liked my tattoos, and maybe that's I don't know what the word is for it, but maybe it was just people that I liked people liking my tattoos. But it was something where I started to value what I was doing and contributing to tattooing, as opposed to just looking at people who I felt were just a lot better than me. If that's all you do, it's hard to value what you're doing. And so I felt like this was this kind of like, I was like meeting all these new people. A lot of them already knew each other, and they were all doing interesting things in tattooing. It just kind of like opened my mind to like a different attitude.
There is that definitely. And especially getting like some kudos from people that you're like, well, I like your shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
it was like I found like more, I don't know, it's like more like peers, people that I felt more comfortable being myself, maybe. Not like I think I've always struggled with the guys at Smith Street because they've been so amazing to me, and I've spent so much time around. But it's hard for me to break out of like a little brother role there because they were already established, and they're just always in my mind at another tier above me. No matter how good I get, I'll always hold them up to this higher level. And so it was nice to like be in this. I always kept myself in that world. I mean, I do value it a lot, but it was being in this other world where I felt like I was kind of on a more of an even playing field with people. I think that was a big part of it. And just nice people. And it blew my mind. And then like, so last year I helped bring Scott Harrison out there.
Oh, cool.
Josh has been, I mean, like a lot of us, like, I mean, Scott is sort of this like living legend, mythical figure in tattooing, and he had just started tattooing again. And Josh was interested in having him out there, and I had started having a good relationship with Scott around then. I was just like, Scott, I really think you should come out here for this thing. Like, I think you dig it. And he was hesitant, and I was selling it hard. I was like, I know it sounds like a convention, and I don't know how to explain it to you, but like, it's an amazing thing. And he agreed. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he agreed to come out, I was just like, fuck, I hope it lives up. Like, but then, I mean, he went out there and he had a similar kind of experience that I had, where he was just like, that was like the most fun I've ever had in tattooing. And like, there's something special that happens out there. It's hard to explain. Everyone should go and get tattooed out there.
Yeah. For sure.
Josh and that whole crew, they're all amazing. Josh, someone I met through Smith Street. Again, I mean, just meet certain people, and then it just opens up doors, and you just kind of go in those doors, and see what happens. So that happened, and then Gordon called me. He was like, "Hey, I'm moving back to Portland." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, dude." I was so bummed when Gordon left Portland. And so he's like, "I'm coming back." I was like, "Oh, that's such good news." I was like, "Where are you going to work?" He's like, "Me and Manny are talking about opening a shop." I was like, "That's cool." He was like, "We want you to be a part of it." And I was just like, "Okay." I was like, "I don't really want to be a shop owner. I don't want to like open a shop. Let me think about it." And he's like, "That's cool." He's like, "If you don't want to be like an owner, like we just want you to come work with us." I was like, "Well, I'll definitely do that." And then as soon as I was like, "Well, if I'm going to be working there, I'm going to want to like be involved in the shop." So like very quickly it was like, yes, let's open a shop together. Hey, I have a name for the shop. Hey, I'm designing shirts for the shop. Like, all this stuff.
Just took over.
So I mean, we're like, okay, we're doing this, and we kind of got together, and I was like, okay, who knows? Do we know how do you open
a business?
How do you start a business? It's like, no idea. Like all three of us, all we've ever done is tattooed, basically. You know, it's just like, okay, how do you start a business? So luckily, I knew some people that kind of got us pointed in the right direction and got us set up in the right direction. And it's funny when you decide to do something, and then you just keep taking one step and then next and the next. And then
it's fun because then you're like, oh, I know how to do this now. Like I know how to. Well, I mean, yeah. But like like I think I get a lot of people asking me like, how do you open a business? Like, what do I do? What's the first step? How do I get a business license?
It's daunting.
I'm like, it's government stupid paperwork, and you're gonna have to put your the business address on multiple pieces of the same pamphlet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, didn't you get that from page 1? My address. Why do I keep putting? I remember I was like filling something out, and I was like, I've put my address on this thing like 5 times.
Yeah, they should have it by now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have. Not that I didn't have respect for shop owners before, but I have so much more respect for especially single owners, where it's just like taking on all of that responsibility, all of that expense. Like there's no, I mean, I think other than the first couple of years of tattooing, I was like, I'm going to open my own shop someday. Other than that, I was just like, I never want to open my own shop. I want to show up and tattoo and go home and not have the headache. And so that was when they first asked me. I was like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to worry about that shit. I don't want to worry about employees and fucking.
Because you've been in the trenches with other dudes being like, dude, I gave them this much money this month.
Yeah, people
How
are
much
never...
is rent? It's like, it doesn't matter what the dude. You have no idea what it took.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, being able to split it with 2 other people, split the expenses,
that's really nice.
Split the responsibilities, and there aren't many people that I would have gone into business with. Even I didn't know Manny that well going into it. I mean, we had hung out some, and we knew we got along, but starting a business with someone is very different than being friends with someone.
Yeah.
But it's all been, I mean, I kind of hesitate to say, but it's been easy. I mean, I've been accused of having, kind of a charmed life. It's just like meeting people who just kind of hand me, here's how you become a tattoo artist. Here you can come work with us. Here you can come work here. We'll get you a job here. Oh, you want to open a shop? Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. You find these 2 amazing people, and then
that's all.
And
yeah,
everything
you find
falls
2
into
really
place.
amazing.
You end up in a really cool location, and the next thing you know, Scott Harrison is coming to work at your shop, and it's fucking surreal. And
and people say it's hard,
It's just I'm really lucky, and I know that. I do, I think, work not as hard as Jason Kendall, but I work. I think I work pretty hard. I mean, when we would do, with Kendall, it was every year we would have a one-on-one year-end meeting. Here's how things are going for you at the shop.
Yeah.
First couple of years made me nervous, but then it's every year, Jason's just it's you come in, if you're not tattooing, you're painting. I love it. Keep up the good work. It's just okay. So I still try and, right now I'm doing 1 appointment a day. It kind of keeps the traffic down with COVID and everything. It's an easier schedule, but I come in at 10 and I leave at 5. I'm working on stuff for the shop. I'm painting flash. I'm busy all day, every day. It's awesome. I mean, I've worked with people that kind of put their heads down at work, just take a nap, and it's you're here.
Yeah. Why don't you treat it like work?
I mean, it's it doesn't even feel like work a lot of the time. It's just don't you I don't know. We're when I think about what I do for a living, it's fucking ridiculous.
Don't tell our wives that. Man.
She knows.
I know.
But I mean, it's just look at the fucking stuff I
we draw goofy. We draw
like,
goofy shit, and it's like super fun. And then we like hang out with our friends and bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's like, stop telling me what you eat for lunch every day. I was like, yeah, okay. But
man, yeah.
I don't know. Having a shop now it's the best. I love being here. It's what I needed. I didn't think I wanted to do it, but now that I've done it, it's just like, oh, this is what I needed. I needed to be in. Turns out I have control issues.
Yeah.
I like being in control. I'm learning to delegate. I'm learning to ask people for help, which is good. It's good to have people that you can rely on, which we do. God, I mean, I figured it was going to be the three of us for a while, me, Manny, and Gordon, just kind of in the shop by ourselves for a while. And then all of a sudden we have this fucking crazy crew where it's
the crew is crazy, man.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, obviously Manny and Gordon are anybody who knows those guys, they don't have a bad word to say about either of those guys, and I don't either. I mean, they're amazing. They're great tattooers. They work hard. They think a lot about what they're doing. We all push each other. I didn't know Celia before. Manny was just like, Celia's amazing. She wants to work with us. And I was like, all right, well, let's hang out, you know? So we hung out. She came to paint night. We did like a day on the river, just hanging out, swimming and hanging out and talking. And it's just like, oh yeah, this is an obvious home run here.
Mm-hmm.
Annalise, who's now splitting her time between Colorado and Portland. She was someone I started hanging out with Manny as we were building out the shop. And it's just like, well, this is an obvious, perfect fit. And then the opportunity to get Scott Harrison in here, which is surreal in the best way. I mean, we started doing weekly paint nights in here, and he started coming to those, and he was just super stoked on what we were doing, which is cool. Like I said, I mean, he's like this mythical figure in a way, and he was, by the time I knew that I wanted to get tattooed by him, he was done tattooing. He had arthritis in his hands that just prevented him from tattooing. He was done tattooing. It had been 9 years.
What happened to that arthritis?
I guess it went away, and he had other things happening in his life where he felt like he needed to be doing something again, and tattooing was the thing that he knows how to do. So he got licensed again, which is
crazy,
just hilarious. To him having to go through that nightmare.
Is he going to work full? Like, what's his schedule?
Working 3 days. I mean, he's been working 3 days a week at Historic, and he's going to be working 3 days a week here.
That's crazy.
Regular
schedule.
Everyone should want to get tattooed by him. I mean, the tattoo is going to be amazing. The entire experience is as good as it gets. I mean, the guy has been tattooing for so long. He's been around the best people in tattooing. Endless stories related to tattooing, outside of tattooing. He's laser smart. He'll recommend books. He'll recommend movies. He'll recommend things that you will love. And he's, in a large part responsible for me starting to find myself in tattooing. I think I was already talking about this a little bit. Just giving me the comments, being like, you're good. You can do this. Like that stuff's fine too. You're not doing anything wrong. I mean, his compliment that he gives me, he would say, oh, Jeff does perfect tattoos, but in a good way.
Oh,
so
damn.
There's always the compliment always feels like there's some other edge to it that you're not totally sure how to interpret what he means. But he likes my tattoos, but he also, I think, sees that I'm capable of other things. And hearing that from someone like him, it comes with a lot of weight. And he's also, I mean, he's stoked to be here too. He feels like he's getting, that the road goes both ways. He's talked many times about how comfortable he feels in here. Excited about tattooing and just,
yeah, that's so cool.
The conversations we have in here. So everyone, go get tattooed by Scott Harrison. He's the best.
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna at least.
Oh, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to move on from Scott. So if you want to say something about Scott,
I was gonna say, like, at least come set up an appointment with him, and like you'll just get a story. Like
you'll
just
get a story.
oozes.
You'll get a great
like,
tattoo.
yeah.
I mean, it's you'll want more.
Man.
He's so interesting. Before I knew Scott, I knew of Scott, obviously, and my impression of him was just like, oh, this guy is so sick of tattooing. He's over it. He feels like it's treated him wrong. And I think it was when he was on Andrew Stortz's Books Closed.
Oh yeah.
Podcast. And I listened to that interview. I was just like, oh, this guy doesn't hate tattooing. This guy loves tattooing.
Oh yeah.
And that was around when I reached out to him originally, and we first started hanging out, spending time together. But yeah, I was just like, I for the longest time, because I mean, he has a sort of a bitter sense of humor, you know, and like, there's plenty in tattooing to be, you know, that you can make fun of and pick on. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous thing. It's a lot of ridiculous things that happen in tattooing and things that are popular that are just terrible and whatever. I won't go into the specifics, but anyway, he's the best. Gordon, Manny, Celia, Annalise, Scott Harrison, Jason Tyler Grace is coming on. He's been working with us for the last month, and it seems like he's going to come on board full time.
Oh dang, cool.
So it's just kind of like, I don't know.
What a crazy shot.
Yeah, I don't know why I deserve it. Maybe I don't deserve it, but I'm just taking it for all it's worth. And just trying to to live up to it, you know?
Yeah.
We've started the shop, and it's become pretty incredible pretty quickly. Our original plan was to just find a tiny, like 800, 900 square foot space that was super cheap. The three of us could tattoo in and not really worry about the cost of the shop at all, and just kind of do our own thing there. And then we ended up in this beautiful big space in the middle of this
great
neighborhood,
area, yeah.
facing a park out the front. It's just kind of ridiculous.
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's great,
it's
man.
Great. Yeah.
I think, man, dude, thank you so much for
My pleasure, man. This was fun. I
me.
hope I didn't talk too rapidly, jump around too much.
No, it was good. It was great, man.
You can pause, you can rewind, maybe.
Yeah, no, it was really awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what the future holds, man.
Thanks, man. Me too.
Quite a great shop, dude.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much
for sitting with me, talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said,
amazing,
I hope that
man.
people can make sense of what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course, man. And honestly, why your life has been so blessed, it's that mustache, dude. I'm telling you.
I've had it for most of my tattoo career at this point, actually. I've had it for a long time.
Gets your foot in the door,
Sticking
man.
with it. I shaved it at one point. My wife was just like, don't ever shave it.
Don't you
again.
do that. Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking with me.
My pleasure. Yeah,
Is there anything you want to plug other than Scott Harrison?
Scott Harrison. Come get tattooed. Tattoo Smile. Everyone here is amazing. You'll have a good time, and wear your mask and be safe.
Right on.
I'm going to put
Thank
my
you so
mask
much.
on in a minute.
Okay. All right. Bye.